In the world today, we have sort of a quilt work of various types of governmental jurisdictions. We even often have sort of nested jurisdictions inside other jurisdictions. In places like Mexico, we see states and a federal government. Famously in Europe, we have nation states and a European Union. Likewise, in the United States, we have a bunch of states and they're united under a federal government. This can create a lot of confusion. People don't know what the states govern, what the federal government governs. So we have rules about what the federal government can govern and what's left for the states. Luckily for crypto right now, the federal government is very interested in crypto and it's claiming jurisdiction over some important areas of crypto. If you're mainly interested in ADA claiming a jurisdiction that's somewhere north of 30 cents, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies DRep address and the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. All right, thank you. Thank you for joining. I'm not going to lie, with all the whatever these outages, these internet outages were, it's made it a little bit hectic tonight. So right before I jumped on, I noticed that a lot of things were down, not just YouTube, or had been down. We'll actually cover a little list of some things that were down tonight. One of them, some of them were pieces of software, pieces of cloud software I usually use to, like produce the intro for these videos. So I was kind of the intro was all done. I just needed to render the file so I could upload it to this streaming software. Anyways, everything got in there at the very last second, but it also, because all these pieces of software were acting so weird, it also caused me to have to reboot the computer at the last second. So you're going to see a lot of sort of spinning Chrome tabs there as these update. But we'll kind of go through these tabs and we'll see how they behave. But everything's kind of refreshing all at once, and we've got a huge number of things to cover right now because we got 2 days worth of news. So a lot of things to cover. But let's see who's here. Neo Chat is here. I'm like half expecting the streaming software to suddenly quit on us, but so far it's working. Neo Chat is here. Neo Chat says, let's go. Hilldog is here. Hilldog says, let's fucking go. So the streaming software is moving kind of slowly. It's kind of moving slowly. So something's going on. You guys will have to let me know if the audio is coming through clearly. Hilldog says, a really good video today. Charles Consensus Hong Kong Triangle Man. Yeah, we covered his previous Triangle Man speech, but I'll look into this new one. I saw that the talk from Consensus Hong Kong had been posted. I'm gonna look into that and see if there's any new information or if he's just kind of rehashing the same stuff for the Consensus crowd. Do you not use this? I was just browsing and all of a sudden I saw the stream post. I came in to kick the like square in the face to boost the algorithm. Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll be enjoying the show. Flyover Me's here. Let's go. Dr. Dokes has agreed, Hilldog. Exciting update from midnight. Let's see. Brown Beardo says, hola, let's not go to California. I'm going to have to agree with that at this point. J. Marie says, what's up, my gangstas? Let's go. Otis Freechove says, let's go, AOS fam. Let's go, Otis Freechove. James Syracuse is here. Jordan for America is here. Let's go, AOS fam. Let's go. Brown Beardos is probably a Cloudflare hiccup again. Yeah, that's kind of the first thing when I saw that it wasn't just YouTube. I kind of assumed it was something akin to the problems we've seen with Cloudflare. It's kind of what I thought it was going to be. They need to, I think anybody in crypto can tell them they need to decentralize a little bit. They shouldn't every important website in sort of the industrialized world shouldn't go down at once because they're all relying on one damn company. Brown Beardos says, audio good. Thank you. Bindocam says, when new AOS laptop go? No, definitely not that. But The laptop actually does pretty good. It's done quite well recently. This problem had to do with one of the pieces of cloud software. Obviously, I use a bunch of different pieces of cloud software for a lot of different things, and one of them was having some mad trouble tonight that caused some trouble. It's the keynote from Consensus Hong Kong reposted. Okay, yeah, I saw it was posted today. Maybe it's just the same. Is it just the same keynote I previously covered? The Triangle Man speech? Is it the same speech? It sounds like I saw people were calling it the Triangle Man speech, so I assumed it was the same one. Plucky Hawk is here. Oh my God, just in time I discovered AI music production and I'm addicted. Yeah, the AI music production got really good really fast. Let me tell you, the same things you can do with AI in music in like 3 seconds took a long time to teach yourself how to do back in the day. The intro to these videos is a product of that from like how long ago? Like 2011 or something like that. Maybe longer ago than that. Brown Beardo, yes. Okay, good to know. Yeah, that was a good speech, though. That was a good speech. I agree. DVNC, good mid-afternoon. Good mid-afternoon. Glad you joined us. Rulo says, hola. Thank you for joining us. Yep, Maka's shirt is the one presentation. McDonald's. Okay. MacDo. Okay. MacDo shirt is the one presentation. It just got clipped yesterday. Okay. I see what's going on. Okay. That's what I assumed it was. But they so many people were talking about it. I was afraid it was something brand new. So okay, I'm glad I did not rewatch some gigantic presentation that I already seen. Okay. So this is like not a very exciting title. Let's be honest here. Cardano and Federalism is not a very exciting title, but I think it is kind of one of the most important things impacting us today, at least. Today, it's impacting us. And I thought it was a good thing to lead with because I strongly believe, we've got the things going on inside our Cardano ecosystem, and they're the most important to us. But we have some big crypto things going on right now. And the big crypto things aren't always the biggest things impacting Cardano. Sometimes the things inside Cardano are the biggest things for us. But I think right now, the biggest things, aside from midnight launching, the biggest things impacting us are the same big things that are impacting crypto. So we're going to talk a little bit about one of them. So for people who don't know, we have this conflict constantly in the US between what the federal government wants to regulate and what the states want to regulate. And a lot of times this manifests in areas like environmental law, regulation of foods, all these kinds of things, regulation of social issues. And, it's usually, the federal government wants to go in one direction. The states want to go in a completely different direction. Sometimes this is due to this, a certain state being an outlier, some state being in a very different part of the political spectrum than the prevailing party in Washington. Sometimes it's just a different focus between the two. But right now, this is starting to rear its head a little bit in crypto. So I think it's worth talking about. So what we're talking about is this. This is Mike Selig, Chairman Mike Selig of the CFTC. He says they are taking prediction markets. The CFTC is taking over the prediction market regulation game. He does not want the states to be the ones to regulate this. The CFTC is going to do it, and they claim they've been doing it for a long, long time. So this is actually good for crypto because certainly Chairman Selig here and the current executive branch in Washington are much more crypto friendly than some of the states. Not more so than all the states. The states are across the spectrum. Some are very much left of the aisle. Some are very much right of the aisle. But it's probably better for crypto overall that the federal government is sort of staking its claim on some of these things. We're not getting into the legal minutia about, what different areas the federal government is allowed to preempt the states in. There's a huge amount of case law on that. You can take many long classes, spend a lot of hours studying that. But what we do know is that crypto has fallen predominantly into the hands of the federal government. And for us right now, that's pretty good. So what's the reason why this is coming up right now is this. Chris Christie is leading a campaign to ban American prediction markets in states across the country. We're simply not going to allow that to happen. So this is good, right? Do Polymarket and Kalshi like this right now? Yes, they do. They do not want to be banned. They would rather be they'd rather be regulated by the federal government. So he says prediction markets are not new. We've regulated prediction markets since 1992. These markets allowed for political predictions, predictions on corporate earnings, and now sports. What we're seeing now is a huge uptick in demand by Americans to predict the future. These event contracts are very different than entering into an agreement with a casino or a bookie. They're actual derivative contracts. They go through a clearinghouse. They're settled through offset. You can get out of your position. We surveil and police these markets. The CFTC will defend its authority and ensure that prediction markets are built in America, not in China or Russia or anywhere else offshore where information can be polluted and manipulated. Thanks to POTUS, we're ensuring the U.S. remains the crypto capital of the world. And he wants you to watch his full interview. So this is kind of important because he's right. With anything in crypto or anything in a lot of these types of markets, what we have is a race to the bottom. So if states are allowed to outlaw something like prediction markets, what's going to happen? The prediction markets aren't going to go away. They're just going to operate from, like he said, someplace offshore. And the same people in Chris Christie's state are going to be accessing those prediction markets. They might even have to use a VPN. Certainly no one has those. No one in crypto, no one who wants to use prediction markets has a VPN. So we know it's just a race to the bottom, and people will be using these prediction markets no matter what. So this is something I kind of expect to see going forward in between now and the end of this executive branch administration. There's going to be a lot of times where the states are going to want to regulate things that maybe fall more properly under the federal government's jurisdiction, the federal government's auspices. And, on crypto, we're probably better off with the federal government anyways. So in the same interview on Fox Business, he also said we're on the cusp of getting clarity enacted into law. We want to future-proof our statutory framework for crypto. So that doesn't really mean much. Him saying that doesn't mean much, but I think it's important to think about because it shows that the federal government, every head of agency that sort of touches crypto has been instructed. It seems like they've all been instructed to keep repeating that we're close on the Clarity Act. I think this is kind of like a little bit of insight into the way the Trump administration works. We sort of, it's like a memo goes out to all the heads of agencies, and the memo is sort of like, hey, keep saying this. Here's the talking point. No matter what, say this. And right now, the talking point is still, we are close to getting the Clarity Act, which is good. If the executive branch believes they're going to get the Clarity Act, that's probably a good thing. So that means they're going to push the legislative branch to get there. How's the audio? Still coming through for everybody? I noticed the comments kind of stopped. Is it just a lull in the comments, or are we having some kind of a Cloudflare-esque problem with the streaming platform or YouTube? Somebody make a comment and the comments aren't coming through. So let me know. Let me know if you guys, okay, still good. Still good. Nobody talky. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Audio still good. Still good here. Okay. Just making sure. Just making sure. I knew I hadn't muted it, but I wanted to make sure. Okay. So this is good. It looks like the memo to the agency heads is still, we are doing this Clarity Act thing. We're not moving past that. We're still doing it. Okay. Yep. Thanks. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Yep. Appreciate it. Okay. So the good thing is crypto industry, big crypto, they're pretty savvy at this point. This isn't like the old days where it was just a bunch of dudes on Reddit. We have some big money in crypto. We have some big institutions like Coinbase, and they understand how important this is. Here you see Brian Armstrong. Couldn't be more clear. CFTC has exclusive jurisdiction over prediction markets in the US because they probably hadn't been paying too much attention to this in the past. Obviously he's got a prediction market. So, the legal team over there, certainly has a handle on what body of regulation they're going to fall under. But I'm sure it hadn't been on their radar that Chris Christie was going to pop up and be like, nope, this is a state issue. We're just going to try to outlaw it in our state. It probably wasn't on their radar. So when they saw that pop up, they're probably like, oh God, are we going to get kicked out of certain states? Are we going to go through this thing down the list where we get kicked out of all the most blue states? So they're probably very, very happy to see Mike Selig coming out like this. Same thing from one of the Winklevi. Huge. This is the kind of leadership and courage that will make America the crypto and markets capital of the world. I'm not in love with the Winklevi. They haven't exactly been friends of Cardano, but in a lot of cases, they are correct, as they are here. This is the executive branch's commitment to crypto. It's kind of refreshing to see, not because they're into crypto, but because they haven't abandoned it. It would be politically convenient for them to just be like, we tried, now we're done, and just sort of move on. Kind of like the Doge thing. The Doge thing was sort of like, they let Elon come in, gave it the old college try, didn't work, and then they were out. They were done. That was over. Doge ended. It was done. I was a little bit afraid the same thing would happen with crypto if they didn't see some really good momentum and things started to slow down. I was a little afraid it would be a Doge kind of destiny for crypto in this administration, and they would just kind of move on, So I've been a little afraid of that. That doesn't seem to be the case yet. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But the Winklevi here is correct. It is. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say courageous. To us, it feels courageous. But I will say that I'm super glad they haven't given up on crypto. Okay, what have we got here? It looks like I don't know. Okay, so this is the maybe we got some Cloudflare problems on Twitter right now. Okay. I know what this is, actually. Let's see if this will reload for us. So this is a post from Daniel Friedman. I don't think this is the kind of stuff that's not very interesting to me. Daniel Friedman's posts are interesting to me. What he's commenting on is not very interesting. But I wanted to address this because this drama, the big drama of the week, always gets a lot of press in Cardano. So I want to kind of, at least acknowledge it. So this poster, never heard of them, posted, hey, look at the Cardano ecosystem map. And then they posted a map from, I think, the community note. It was from like 2021 or something like that. Really old map, like, something like half a decade old, and they posted like, there's like obviously a ton of NFT projects on there from that cycle, and all those NFT projects are gone. So there's all these giant red X's. The community notes also point out that a bunch of the projects were never even in Cardano, and some of the projects on there are like Ledger, like, the Ledger hardware wallet. So it's not a very informative post. But I'm glad there are people like Dan Friedman who call people out about stuff like this. To me, it's almost like a non-event. Because you can see the posters are never really responsible for what they post. They're never like accountable. Like here you can see he got called out by Dan Friedman, and apparently he got blocked. Dan Friedman got blocked by this person. But to me, this is a person who I've never seen this person's name, never seen them in crypto or in Cardano. So to me, this is sort of a non-event, but I want to acknowledge it just because it made the rounds and people seem to be so excited by it. Mark Going says, just joined, all good. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Bindocam says, enraptured by the dulcet tones of your voice, it seems. I like the sounds of that. I know you're joking, but I still like the sounds of it. I delegate AOA stake pool and DRep and got friends to do so too. Thank you. Thanks, Hildog. I appreciate that. Bramberto says, it is interesting to see the online chatter from normies about the prediction markets and fears about fomenting gambling addictions. Yeah, at first I kind of like the prediction markets were always fascinating to me, because all of a sudden we had this like new crypto way of seeing the future. So they were kind of fascinating in that regard. At the same time, I was like, this is going to be a degen magnet, right? The same guys who were buying meme coins and NFTs are going to be all over this. This is definitely the thing that's going to push those same dopamine buttons as those, casino style markets. But also, people started looking at prediction markets a little bit differently over the last 6 months. People started saying things like, this is the new social media. Like commenting on the prediction markets is kind of the same as watching new news items coming down your feed in X and everybody commenting on the news items, right? And I was like, you know what? I think they're right. I think this is a new type of social media. It's a new way to consume news. When I say social media, I'm not talking about like, you know, whatever goes on Facebook, whatever stupid stuff goes on Instagram. I'm talking about, the consumption of news type of social media, like adult social media, the social media that involves actual thinking, actual mental exercise, that type of social media. But I think prediction markets, there's an argument that prediction markets become the dominant form of that, because I find myself, I mean, if there were like the equivalent of X threads under the prediction market that were as active as some of the discussions in X, I'd probably spend as much time over there as I would over here, because you can kind of watch people, sort of like, voting with their wallet about the future. And when people vote with their wallet, they tend to vote wisely. Okay, maybe not in prediction markets and crypto. People definitely do unwise things, but they do it very sincerely, right? People don't often sincerely lose money. You could do manipulative things to try to sway markets. You could do that on purpose, but people tend not to purposely lose money. So there's a weird element of sincerity to prediction markets that doesn't really exist in crypto, right? It's like people will come on, it doesn't really exist in normal social media. People will come on X and talk all kinds of shit that they don't really believe, but the same people wouldn't necessarily put $100 on that, right? They wouldn't put $1,000 on it. So there's this like different level of speaking with your wallet that is little bit more of an authenticity regulator. It's a little bit more of a truth teller. It's a truth uncoverer. What do you really think? Because you're probably not putting $1,000 on something you don't think is going to happen. So there's something to the prediction market thing. It's probably a little bit more powerful than a lot of people think. John Polo says, "Sup, my guy. Sorry, I haven't been watching live in the last 2 months. Been in the fiat mines because I bought a house. Oh, congratulations. Plus, my girl got breast cancer. I'm trying to tokenize them titties. Just kidding. Not kidding. I am so sorry if your girl got breast cancer. I'm so sorry to hear that. But I appreciate your positive your positive perspective on things, if that's the case. I'm the same. Sometimes people get alarmed because I joke in the face of very grim news and events, affecting me. I would definitely be the one to joke about something very grim happening to myself. But I think sort of like the battlefield humor is the best way to deal with very dark events. So I'm so sorry to hear that if your girl is actually encountering that, but I do appreciate your approach to it very much. Miss your show though. Thanks, John. I appreciate you saying that. Is Dan Friedman the Ergo guy? Dan Friedman is the Palmyra guy. I don't know what other projects he's a proponent of, but he is the Palm Economy guy. And he's been in Cardano a long, long time. One of the true original guys in Cardano. And he has a great X account too. He has many, many good takes on many things. I tried to delegate my mobile wallet, would not let me. So I sent a sternly worded letter to Tangem about staking in banks and how important it will be to fix that kind of shit. Thank you, Puggyhawk. I appreciate the attempt. Anyways, it started by proving several times that the prediction markets at least were more accurate than political polling. That's what really got my attention. When the prediction markets started sticking the elections in ways that the pollsters could not. It's because people, if you call somebody up on the phone and you poll them, they will lie to you, especially if they were voting for the current president. There was a lot of lying and underreporting of true intentions there for some reason. I won't even get into theories as to why that is, but yeah, prediction markets definitely stuck it where polling did not. Rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off. People vote stupid with their wallets, from my experience. I mean, people do that too, but they're not as quite as willing to do that as they are to talk shit on X. Troll Toll says, when it comes to the video game industry, people are speaking with their wallet. That's true. That's very true. Not financial advice. Any good AI bot trading platforms you'd recommend? Any thoughts on this matter? Definitely not. Definitely not. I am definitely not the guy to give advice on that kind of thing. Man, I use all AI a lot, like every day, for making images for thumbnails on this channel for a long time now, and like lately, since I came back from the fiat mines, I've been using AI to code like most days. Like I think most of the day today, I was using AI to code. Most of last night, all of last night, I was using after because I didn't do a video last night. I was using AI to code. AI is great for many, many things. I would not even dare try to make a recommendation in that direction, though. AI bot trading platforms. I would not ever recommend any AI bot trading platform. I would, if I were you, I would create your own AI bot, maybe not for trading, but create your own AI bot to do things, and then you won't have to wonder which one is good because you'll see so many weird behaviors from your AI. You probably would never trust it to trade for you if you use it a lot, and if you use it a lot for things that require a lot of discretion, you may not trade. You may not trust any AI bot trading platform. Brown Beardo says AOS makes some mean Fibonaccios. Yep, yep. It is true. I make video games, and if there is even a hint of woke in the ads or the journalists, the game is likely to fail. That is definitely true. I do enjoy some I do enjoy some AC Shadows lately, but that game, man, as soon as I saw what they were doing, I knew. As soon as I saw it, I knew there was gonna be PR hell to pay. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Um, okay, I thought this was interesting. We talk about this quite a bit on this channel. I like it when people bring this up because it's something we talk about quite a bit on this channel. So this post says, I'm hoping someone can tell me why Cardano has 6 billion staked ADA earning 2.5% and 130 million in DeFi total value locked. So if you're in Cardano, those numbers are wrong because we have, something, a very high percentage of the overall ADA is actually staked. It's actually closer. This is probably the exact number right here, 21.5 billion. I haven't checked it like in the last couple of days, so I don't know the exact number. I used to track it pretty closely, but um the um the difference in the level of DeFi TVL and the amount staked is pretty stark. And it's exactly what we always talk about on this channel, right? It's like we don't have slashing. Staking is pretty good in Cardano. And it's so good. I would argue it's so good that people just don't want to take the risk in DeFi, right? This is one of the things that I think is waiting to uncover itself for a lot of the people who think that stablecoins are going to be a savior descended from the heavens for Cardano. Like the problem is, I mean, we need stablecoins. We need some tier one stablecoins. That's gonna be a good thing for the ecosystem. It's not gonna do. I don't think it's gonna do exactly what people think it's gonna do. If it does, great. I'll be so happy if it does. But I don't think it's gonna do that because we have this problem in Cardano. It's not really a problem. I hate this is so cliche, but it's definitely a function. It's definitely a feature and not a bug that our staking is so good that people are happy to stake and they don't want to take those risks in DeFi, right? They don't want to take the risks in DeFi. They don't want to put their little lobsters into a lobster trap. They're happy in staking. So it has an impact on the DeFi TVL. And for people outside of Cardano in ecosystems where they have like slashing and staking, it doesn't make any sense. But I like it when it pops up because then people are like, whoa, are you telling me that the Cardano staking is that good that people would rather stake than use DeFi? According to the numbers, the answer is yeah, to a pretty big extent. Um, so here's another thing about Cardano. We talk about this all the time, but I love it when somebody points it out. So here we have this post. This is exactly what you think it's going to be. Network outages in the past 5 years, and they count everything but Cardano. They point out only Ethereum has had 0 network outages, and it's literally every chain except for Cardano. And she says, just in case you were wondering why greater than 50% of DeFi TVL is locked on Ethereum. And of course, someone in Cardano points out, Cardano also zero. She conveniently left that out. So we talked about this a little bit in the last episode. People brought this up. I was sad to hear this, so I wanted to include the official statement from Noom. I'm always sad when people are doing like a cool project that actually does something besides DeFi, something original. I'm always sad when those fail. But the truth of the matter is, this is capitalism. Crypto is capitalism. And if you don't quite find market fit, you got to fail, right? It's Darwinian. Capitalism is Darwinian, right? It's survival of the fittest. That's the only way it works. The communist thing where we support failing enterprises doesn't work. And sometimes, something could succeed, but the execution is wrong, or it just doesn't find market fit, or there was never a market for it, whatever. There's a million reasons why businesses fail. But it has to be this cruel Darwinian world, right? It has to be the lions killing the gazelle dying if they're too slow. Only the fastest gazelle survive. All the things have to happen. Most entrepreneurial projects fail. Only the ones that have excellent execution and a huge amount of luck on like 50 different metrics are the ones that succeed. It's not even like if you do a good job, it'll succeed. It's like you have to do a good job and you have to get lucky on 50 different things, and then maybe you'll succeed. That's how Darwinian and crazy capitalism is. And that's why capitalist societies are such high performers. And all of the basically commie-oriented societies, it's just like failure after failure after failure. History has taught us this lesson so well. I don't even need to explain or persuade. You already know. This is how it works. Brown Beardo says, we gamers are very hip to the groove, and the music has stopped on all the woke crap. Very true. Uncle Thanos, good morning. Good morning. Pucky Hawk says, I think banks will want to be a place to stake. Oh, yeah. Banks are going to want to get into, banks are going to have to get into it. Coinbase is going to win that yield battle. Whether they do it this year or in 5 years, they're going to win that yield battle. And banks are going to have to do wildly different things what they're doing to compete. It's like gravity, right? It's like gravity. You put a bowling ball on top of a house, that goddamn bowling ball is going to end up on the ground eventually. It's not going to stay on top of the house, right? It might stay on top of the house for a second, but eventually the bowling ball is going to fall off the house. That's like the yield thing. Stables will track some for sure. They at least proved a model and showed some artists it's possible. Noom. Yeah, this is the way it's got to work, right? It's like you have to have people taking entrepreneurial stabs at these use cases. And, probably like the first 5 are going to fail, right? We've seen that in a lot of different places, right? Even with, we can go way back. We'll go way back, to the turn of the century. You sort of had like all these MP3 players come on the market, along with the iPod. And the iPod eventually destroyed everyone, right? Just totally took over. After a bunch of other MP3 players, like, let's see, what are some that I can remember? Diamond Rio, I think, had an MP3 player. There were a whole bunch of brands, and many of those brands failed. iPod, of course, was a huge success. Eventually we get the iPhone. So it's like you have to have those early attempts so the later entrepreneurs, the later projects can improve and iterate. Yeah, this is the way it's got to work. So I'm glad they did what they did. I'm glad it existed. Sad, but this is the way it's got to be. This is the way it's got to be in not just in crypto, but in all capitalism. It's kind of got to work this way. It's always got to be this kind of thing. So Brown says, yeah, ETH also famously did that rollback too, just as bad or worse than an outage. Oh yeah, if you roll back, if you break the ledger, if you roll back the ledger, you've gone from, it's not even like, people love to talk about blockchains being censorship resistant. If you literally go back in time, if you roll back the ledger, it's worse than censorship. You're just like, hey, this block of hours didn't exist, right? I'm not just like censoring somebody's transaction. It's not like Operation Choke Point 2.0 where like certain people get censored. It's like you censored the entire blockchain during a period of time, erased all that, and started over. It's like worse. It's worse than censorship. So I agree, worse than an outage. Did not uses I can indeed confirm that I'm very happy to stake my ADA. I'm a small investor, but I would not want to risk my ADA for anything this time. Staking it is absolutely the most satisfying way. The boy in me wants to roll a bowling ball off a house now. You are a bad influence because I own a bowling ball. I know. As soon as I said it, I realized I also want to do this. I don't have a bowling ball, but I would want to do this. So I think let's see. There's a pretty good post. There was a great post by Joyous Testimony. I can't find it right now. I thought I included it, but I think the reboot may have scrambled the tabs a little bit, so we may encounter it later. But there was a great post by Joyous Testimony, not on the Noom thing, but on the on this DeFi thing that people are kind of commenting on in the comments right now. There was a great post by Joyous Testimony where he pointed out that there are some serious tax implications also for being in DeFi. If you trade a DeFi token, if you trade your ADA for a DeFi token, yeah, unfortunately, I can't find his post right now, but if you trade your ADA for a DeFi token, that's a disposition of your ADA according to the IRS, and now you've got to calculate gains and losses. So it's not just a matter of picking the biggest yield. There's quite an administrative burden involved. Like just today, I had already gotten my taxes in to the accountant. The accountant was telling me they were all done. And all of a sudden I get a message from Coinbase. Coinbase is like, hey, here's a 1099 DA, brand new document. This 1099 DA, is new this year. Here you go. Of course, I open it up. And what Coinbase has done is they are sending this out because they may or may not be calculating in certain cases. This is what I'm gathering. They may or may not be calculating that the payment of transaction fees, like if you buy ADA on Coinbase and then you send it to yourself, there were some transaction fees paid to transact on the Cardano blockchain. And they're like, hey, some time elapsed between you buying it and you paying those transaction fees. That's a disposition of ADA. So, maybe you had a 3-cent gain or loss, and Coinbase is actually sending out 1099 DAs with like 3-cent gains. So it's not like a fake thing that the current tax system is going to create a huge administrative burden for you, even on little teeny tiny gains like paying ADA transaction fees. So ridiculous, but that's what's going on in 2026 in crypto. Here's something else that's going on in 2026 in crypto. CZ posts this. He does this interview with Chamath, right? Chamath, obviously very into crypto. What did he say in the famous podcast where I think he said he never pays retail for anything? I think that was the same one where he pointed out at one point he had like 1% of Ethereum or something like that. So let's see. D-Not-U says, it was the first time I saw so many strange things and warnings. Been using CB since they began. Same. I just got mine from Coinbase as well, but at least I was in arrears. Fair enough. So another thing going on right now. Okay, before we move on, Brown Beardo says, I am now finally dipping a toe in DeFi, but only in the most flexible ways. For example, providing Strike, FI, general platform liquidity. Losing money is one thing. The risk of making the wrong bets is another. True, all true. So in this interview, Chamath and CZ, I haven't watched this whole interview. I would actually like to, because I think they're both good thinkers. I think both CZ and Chamath are good thinkers. Obviously, very different. The way, the kinds of thinking they do are very different. Chamath is just like this outsider guy. I mean, he's, in crypto, but he's like not a guy operating a crypto entity like CZ is. CZ is thinking about this as an operator inside crypto. Chamath more from the investor perspective. But the thing they're talking about here is kind of interesting, and it weighs heavily in a good way on Midnight. CZ posts, lack of privacy may be the missing link for crypto payments adoption. Imagine a company pays employees in crypto on chain. With the current state of crypto, you can pretty much see how much everyone in the company is paid by clicking the from address. Guys, this got 1.7 million views. This is some shit that Charles has been saying for years. He's been pounding this particular talking point for years. CZ says it as if he just invented it. And he gets 1.7 million views on X. This is where we're at. I keep saying that I think Charles is like way ahead of the curve on this privacy thing. And based on this, I think he is. Even Coin Bureau, CZ and Chamath warn privacy gap is crypto's biggest hurdle. You know, blah, 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 blah. It's like Charles has been talking about this shit for years. He's ahead of the curve. I think the man is ahead of the curve. Mark Going says the good thing is if you use an aggregator like Coinly, my understanding is that you don't need to worry about the 1090A. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, you know, I'm not the guy who can give tax advice to anyone or is giving tax advice to anyone. If you get those 1099s from somebody, you know, it's a thing. It's a thing for sure. So, I mean, how you account for your cost basis is, you know, another issue. And, you know, there are platforms that can help you do that for sure. But just like getting a 1099 for a 3-cent loss or gain seems, you know, for paying transaction fees in ADA seems ridiculous. That means that everybody who buys or sells on Coinbase might get a 1099 for some tiny amount of cents and then have to incorporate that in their taxes. That seems like a huge wasteful tax burden over a couple of cents. Because most people, if they get a 3-cent loss on a 1099, they would rather not have to incorporate that and go and pay the administrative burden and just not take, you know, be able to write off that loss, that 3-cent loss. BitOKev is probably bad tax advice. You likely won't be audited over less than $1 gains. Yeah, I mean, but if you look at the IRS guidance on, hey, I just got a 1099 DA, that tax guidance is, you know, maybe not going to jive with what you would intuitively think, right? I learned my lesson. I use a CPA now. Me too. I definitely use an accountant. Charles recently spoke on shifting the conversation of crypto as a financial instrument in capital markets to real world use case, such as supply chain, real estate, etc. What is your favorite use case? My favorite use case is just real commerce, right? I think real world assets are a piece of that. Whenever you start talking about certain types of real world assets like real estate, you get into some weird securitization territory, because what people want to do a lot of times in crypto is create basically the equivalent of a REIT, but they don't want to abide by like REIT regulations. So people want to tokenize things like real estate, and there are actually regulations around a lot of those things. You know, they think they're doing like this novel thing, and the law comes along and they're like, oh, actually, we have a name for that. And there's a whole body of regulation around it. So I think generally, I wouldn't name like a very particular use case, but I would say just using crypto for real world transactions is good, because crypto is a better money and the blockchain is a better ledger, right? It's a better ledger in the sense that it's very, very transparent, which is good and bad, because like CZ's talking about here, you don't want to do payroll on the blockchain because then everybody in the company knows how much everybody else is making. Maybe that's good if you believe in, you know, these like dramatic levels of truth and transparency, you know. There are definitely weird companies out there that are like that, where they think the best philosophy is for everyone to know everything. That does exist, but most companies are not like that. So I like doing real commerce with crypto. More on that later. We'll talk more on that later beyond this episode. I'll hopefully be able to talk to everybody about something in that direction. The biggest hurdle in crypto is adoption. Definitely. I mean, like, the biggest hurdle in crypto is adoption during bear markets. adoption is not a hurdle during bull markets. It's very cyclical, right? Like adoption, we have way more adoption than we need during bull markets and way less than is survivable during bear markets. So the cyclical nature is definitely problematic in that respect. It's fun though. It's fun. We all have fun with it. Um, it's like very not fun. It's like a bad girlfriend. It's a cruel mistress. We very not fun when she's in a bad mood, very fun when she's in a good mood. I'll adopt all your crypto if you want to send it to me. There we go. Okay, moving on. We've got a lot of tabs to cover, guys, and I'm going too slowly as usual. So now we'll have make fun of the commies hour. Commie humor hour is one of my favorite parts of the streams lately. So I love the Zoran Mamdani ones because I'll see these posts and I think people are like jokingly putting words in his mouth, and then I'll listen to the video and it's exactly what he's fucking saying. It's like it blows my mind sometimes because I'm like, there's no way he said exactly that, and then I'll watch the video and it's exactly that, right? It's like the shamelessness is enviable. He's like, hey guys, I'm a big old commie. I know I'm doing the classic commie stuff, but I'm not. This is what it is. Like, you guys voted for this. So here we have this post. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani announces he is forced to raid the rainy day fund, the retiree health benefit trust reserve, and to increase property taxes in order to keep the city on firm financial footing. I love this kind of shit because it gets more and more ridiculous. And every time I think it's going to turn out to be fake. And every time it turns out to be real. This commentary is like what I think, but I feel like Mom Donnie would be the first one to put this up in some kind of a PowerPoint presentation. Mom Donnie giving a quick lesson on communism. Your money is our money. Our money is my money. This is like, it's like, it seems like a caricature. I almost think that the writers at Saturday Night Live just got their newest cast member, and they were like, I think we can get him elected as an Islamicist communist. What do you guys think? And they were like, let's run it. Let's run it. And it like worked. And they're like, okay, I guess we just do our skits as press conferences now. And that's what we get. It's great. So kind of the same thing with AOC. Speaking of actors and actresses, people who were casted in roles, so this was kind of a fascinating. She's so happy. She's so happy. This was kind of a fascinating one. So uh we had the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, go to the Munich Security Conference and give what I think is actually one of the best speeches any US politician has given in a long, long time. I honestly think it's one of the best speeches a US politician has given. It was basically like, hey, let's get it together, Western world. The US loves Europe. We will always be, descendants of Europe. Let's get it together. Here's what we need to do. We don't hate you. We love you. We want to fix everything. Let's do it. Great speech. Highly suggest you listen to it. So AOC was also at the Munich Security Conference. So she gets asked this question, and the question is like, hey, you're obviously running for president, soon. You're obviously here because you're running for president kind of thing, So she giggles and laughs like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter who's going to be president. The important thing is that, and she's basically like, we just need to tax the rich. She famously wore the dress to the Met Gala that said tax the rich. And then people figured out how much the dress cost. That was problematic, very expensive dress. And the message was tax the rich. People are like, if you have that dress, aren't you the rich? Then of course her retort was, she was just given the dress to wear for the thing. It wasn't really her dress, not her dress. She's not rich, that kind of thing. So anyways, here she's like very delighted because the lady's like, you're running for president. She's so delighted. And then she's like, it doesn't matter who's, basically like, regardless of who's going to be president, the important thing is, and it's basically, I'm putting words in her mouth, but basically the attitude was, we need to tax the rich. The problem was she ran into this politician from Argentina. Argentina, like many countries outside the US, has done this experiment before. They've done this tax the rich thing before. So this politician gives her a long response about what happens when you tax the rich. You end up with just the tax and no wealth. When you tax the wealthy, you end up with nothing. So a ton of people were posting the meme that was like, uh, trade proposal, you get Diana, I think her name is Diana, this Argentinian politician. I get Diana, you get Alexandria, because the matter of factness with which this politician from Argentina dispelled AOC's fantasy that you can tax the rich and they will somehow stay there to be taxed. They will just accept their ass kicking. She was just like, it was like an adult talking to a child about the child's fantasies, about finding like a tree that grows money or something. So we've already covered sort of this sort of piece of it. People are posting all the kinds of things you would expect, all kinds of things, but it was this was the best like 60-second sort of like, hey, let's be communists, and then the very matter of fact explanation about how it doesn't work. This was like the best 1-minute clip of that ever. And we don't even need to listen to anyone in Argentina. You can already see what happens when you tax the rich. So this is a little chart called US millionaire migration that explains that 50,000 plus millionaires have left California and New York. Florida is their number one destination. Now you can follow the wealth exodus. Look at this map. Dark red, New York and California. Dark red. Places like Florida, very crypto friendly, very much not trying to steal millionaire wealth. Very green. Texas, also pretty green. A lot of Intermountain states, green. A lot of southern states over here, besides a few, pretty green. It's pretty obvious what happens when you tax millionaires. They do not stick around. Troll Toll put a well. Champagne socialists. Seems like, what is it? God, I feel like it's every 20 years, maybe a little longer. I mean, we haven't really had the champagne socialists popping bottles like they are now, sort of in my lifetime, or at least my lifetime as an adult, maybe when I was a kid. But man, they are gulping the champagne right now. So this is something different, but feels the same to me. Different topic, but feels very much the same. So this made the rounds quite a bit. So uh, so a large AI company, uh, has someone in charge of ethics, right? Has someone they put in charge of ethics. I'll put it that way. And it turned out, people figured out that this same person who'd been put in charge of ethics for this very popular AI company was the same person who wrote this very weird essay. To truly end animal suffering, the most ethical choice is to kill wild predators, especially Cecil the lion. Well, I kind of like the clarity. I kind of like the mental clarity of saying like, okay, if we're going to worry about things like not eating animals, then we should consider actually going around and killing the predators, because the predators are definitely carnivores. Like Cecil the lion, as much as he fits the bill when people talk about charismatic megafauna, also not a vegetarian, not a vegan, definitely a carnivore. So I like the mental clarity here, but it is kind of bizarre. So bizarre that Elon Musk had to ask, is this satire or serious? Hard to tell. Grok says, no, it wasn't satire. The post accurately attributes those views, or very close paraphrases, to Amanda Askell based on her last public writing. The core idea that intervening to eliminate or reduce predation in nature could be ethically preferable to allowing suffering from wild animal predation stems from discussions in effective altruism and wild animal welfare circles. Man, whenever I hear effective altruism, I can't help but think of SBF, and it just creeps me out. If somebody tells me they're involved with effective altruism, I'm like, how many nights a week do you have orgies at your mansion, your rented mansion in the Bahamas? That's the first thing that jumps in my head. So even it seems like that's infecting the AI world to some extent too. I mean, not saying she's a part of this effective altruism or not, but you end up with some very weird philosophical results. I actually agree with this part of it, right? If not that we should kill the predators, but that the whole vegetarian thing, the eventual philosophical like path you're on there would result in a desire to kill the predators, probably. Okay. So this is also something kind of interesting. I don't agree with a lot of things that Mark Cuban says, but I think I do agree with a lot of this, at least directionally. Mark Cuban just pronounced software dead. Cuban, software is dead because everything's going to be customized to your unique utilization. Rigid SaaS dies. Businesses stop bending to static tools. AI molds around them, around needs in real time. Value chain shatters, decade of value going to generalist builders ends, transfers to customizers who translate capability into advantage. Next trillion comes from customized intelligence sold to 33 million companies, too small for giants to service. Service as software owns everything. Software as a service over. 33 million companies aren't going to have AI budgets, aren't going to have AI experts. Problems exist, data exists, the bridge doesn't. Learn all you can about AI, but learn more on how to implement them in companies. Market bifurcates into builders and integrators. Integrators capture value, builders can't touch. Every single job available for kids coming out of school because every single company needs that. So he basically, the idea here is that integration of AI into all of these small businesses is going to be a huge growth area. It's kind of hard to argue with that. I noticed I was talking with someone on the phone about this just the other day, and as soon as I got home, I noticed that a large number of videos had launched on YouTube, like that day or the day before, um, advising people to start AI integration agencies, just like they were telling people to start, sort of like web advertising agencies, like internet marketing agencies, 10, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, just like people were starting those agencies, very, very young people often were starting those agencies like 10 years ago. These people are basically offering that maybe the AI integration agencies will be the same thing starting now. So, Omar Wright says, sorry, I'm late. Lost in Claude. Yep. That happens. That definitely happens. Lately, I've been dealing with Codex and Grok quite a bit. Just today, quite a bit, and last night. Okay, here's that post from Joy's testimony I was talking about. It got a little scrambled with the reboot here, the tabs, but he says there also has to be an understanding of the tax consequences of moving money in and out of DeFi. Most stakers would not even know how to begin to report that on taxes. As long as ADA is staked, it can mature to the point of becoming long-term capital gains when they actually sell it. So I'm not vouching or co-signing any tax advice here, just reading this post. I already get a headache every time I try to figure out the purchase price of my CNFTs, as there's no tax software that actually can do that I've found, maybe the new integration. So I agree with what he's saying, though. There is a tax burden and tax consequences to dispositions of coins, like we talked about earlier. And these are not non-events in the tax world. So this is kind of interesting. So I've always been curious, this entire cottage industry of these analysts online doing open source intelligence analysis have been making military data that, it's already public. The reason it's called OSINT is because it's open source. These guys don't have they're not doing human. They're not getting information from, employees of the DoD and making that information public. They're just taking publicly available information and talking about it. But here we see a response from this major in the Air Force, I believe. She says, Twitter randos tracking and publishing our locations in ways we would consider top secret. And she's complaining about it, which is pretty funny. And I do agree with her. There's sort of this gradation Obviously, I think all of the people who talk about, current military buildups and things like that, they're all enthusiasts, and all of them sort of in this sphere. I can't think of a single one who's not a member of an adversary state who would want to reveal anything about the U.S. military buildup, especially the one going on right now, that wasn't already public or that wasn't already widely discussed. I don't think anybody would want to reveal any of those things, but it is kind of interesting, like she the way she's talking about it in this little bit of audio. Obviously, they would prefer that this this kind of open source discussion isn't going on. But at the same time, the people who some of the big accounts in this space, they're saying things like this, which kind of makes sense too. To be fair, I had hints of what was going on and I didn't post about it. I believe she's talking about some of the military buildup toward the Persian Gulf. Given those kinds of situations, I won't. Can't speak for others' abilities or intentions. However, the snuck up part. So in this, she says it kind of snuck up. She kind of implies it snuck up on them that people would be able to, um, that the OSINT people on X would be so good and be able to figure out so much. The snuck up part of the OPSEC surprises me. They've known about social media OSINT for a while, which is true. This other account says, I don't buy the snuck up aspect. Seems to me they accounted for it in the planning by sending the cell westward very publicly. So obviously they know how much of this is being discussed on X. Adversary states have analysts. They're going through X all the time, looking at all this stuff. They already have that. They're already consuming all of the public source stuff, right? It's like there are so many analysts in China and Russia and even in Iran who are just combing through all of the open source information and consuming all of it. These are big intelligence communities and this is their job. This is what they've always done. Of course, they're combing through all of the social media stuff. So, having said that, social media also provides us with some bizarre transparency into adversary regimes like this. A statement from Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei issued shortly after it was announced today's negotiations have ended indicates they're not exactly going well. So the negotiations, shocker, not going well. The Americans say, this is Khamenei, the Americans say, let's negotiate over your nuclear energy. And the result of the negotiation is supposed to be that you do not have this energy. If that's the case, there's no room for negotiation. But if negotiations are truly to take place, determining the outcome of the negotiations in advance is a wrong and foolish act. Yeah, certainly this is no surprise to him that the U.S. position is that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, right? And definitely the timeline is just trending more and more toward Iran trying to have nuclear weapons, enriching uranium, all of those things. They're just, they're trying to move closer and closer to having nuclear weapons. And the US and the rest of the West, most of the rest of the Western world doesn't want them to have nuclear weapons. So, yes, the US is not going to agree to you having nuclear weapons. Yes, we also understand that is the only thing you want. So, but it's like he'll sort of like this is it's hard to dispute the points here. Yes, agreed. The US is not going to negotiate with you on this. But then at the same time, the same account will post things like this. The Americans constantly say that they've sent a warship toward Iran. Of course, a warship is a dangerous piece of military hardware. However, more dangerous than that warship is the weapon that can send that warship to the bottom of the sea. And of course, he is talking about hypersonic missiles and U.S. atomic supercarriers like the USS Gerald Ford. And a related account, I haven't tried to dig into how official this Khamenei media account is, but whatever, seems to be pretty official. It's been posting things like this. You've probably seen the PSYOP anime style videos they've been doing, showing Iranian hypersonic missiles sinking U.S. supercarriers, all those kind of things. But it's sort of an interesting negotiation style. or an interesting PR style. He complains about the U.S. not wanting to negotiate with him on basically having nuclear powers. He brands it nuclear energy, but we all know what he's talking about. And then at the same time, he shows a coffin for one of our super carriers. So a weapon more dangerous than a warship. The U.S. president constantly says that the U.S. has sent a warship toward Iran. Of course, a warship is a dangerous piece of military hardware. However, more dangerous than that warship is the weapon that can send that warship to the bottom of the sea. Not very intimidating. Not very intimidating. So meanwhile, while he's complaining about the negotiations and posting threatening memes, the open source intelligence analysts are posting things like this. I don't think people truly understand just how much metal has been flying east over the past 24 hours. So if you didn't notice, over the last 2 days, really, things have really, really picked up in terms of the buildup of American assets, sort of pointed at Iran. Here's another post. Breaking: offensive U.S. Air Force assets are en route to the Middle East as we speak. B-2 stealth bomber deployments imminent. So, I mean, that's just speculation. I don't know. I don't believe that would be based on, that's just sort of like a guess as to what could happen, but sure feels that way. Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan is about to be very crowded. In a few hours, the U.S. Air Force will have positioned the following aircraft to the base: 24 F-15s, 30 F-35s, 6 EA-18G Growlers, 12 A-10s. So quite a bit. Somebody down here asks about F-22s. More on that later. One of the main indicators of U.S. strikes against Iran being imminent is happening in this very moment. A large amount of F-35s are being dragged east from RAF Lakenheath, while additional tankers leaving Konus. So you know how this works. Fighter jets cannot just fly around the world. They have to have refueling. So that's what they're talking about when they're saying they're being dragged. Then on the other side of the equation, we have this going on. It appears that Russia is supplying the Islamic regime in Tehran with multiple Mi-28 NE attack helicopters, at least 3 deliveries in the last 3 days. Not good. Man, let me tell you, these helicopters will not want to be in the air if American fighter jets are ruling the skies over Tehran. You do not want to be a helicopter like this if F-22s are flying around. That is not going to be a good day for you. So we've also got some things going on the UAP front, and I've been saying this lately, but things are really heating up quite significantly on the UAP front. And it's kind of, there've been a lot of buildups and disappointments in sort of the coverage of UFOs and aliens and UAPs for decades and decades and decades and decades, going all the way back to the first public disclosures about, what was going on in Nevada, and all the way back to Barney and Betty Hill, throughout the entire history of people being interested in the UAP topic. There's been a lot of buildups and a lot of disappointments, but right now feels very different. Things feel pretty different. We're getting a lot of very, very high level people coming out and implying that we might be learning more soon. So this post says, Air Force Brigadier General retired Blaine D. Holt served as deputy ambassador to NATO. Here's what he had to say about aliens. I absolutely do not refute that there are extraterrestrials and that more will be coming out. We will learn more about our friends from other worlds. That is pretty definitive. That's pretty definitive. We will learn more about our friends from other worlds. I like that he said friends. So we're also seeing a lot of this, right? And this is the kind of stuff we've seen before in the whole UAP world. We've seen a lot of things like this, just sort of random, semi-notable journalists coming out and very strongly implying something is coming. So Walter Kern posted this back in October, and he's reposting it this week. Can I blow the whole UFO thing wide open for you? You won't believe me anyway. It's only a matter of time until you hear things that will rock your world. If your world is rockable, you will have a hard time verifying them, but that's true of everything you hear. It's true of unemployment statistics. They will be very specific things, however, and so far out, so beyond your expectations, they will ring your bell and you will hear them from people you weren't ready to hear such things from. The shells are all in the cannon. It's all about who gets to shoot it and who wins and who loses when it goes off. There's money involved, lots. Hear me now, believe me later, as they say. So he's reposting that right now. And like I said, there have been a lot of buildups and a lot of disappointments in sort of UAP, in the UAP disclosure timeline, right? With a few high points, like 2017 December, when all the videos came out and all the coverage, the national publications came out, Gimbal and Go Fast, all those videos. That was sort of a high point, but we weren't necessarily expecting it, right? There was a little rumbling about something happening maybe, but we weren't really expecting it. A lot of people are starting to imply that this administration might be the disclosure administration. People are pointing to dates like June, July, May, maybe something around the 250th anniversary. On July 4th, not on July 4th, but dates around that kind of. There's been a lot of talk of that kind of thing lately. And there's always talk like that in the UAP disclosure world. Every year, pretty much at any time, you can find someone saying that the current president is the one who's going to get up in front of the mic and say, hey, there's non-human intelligence. We've been recovering their crafts and biological specimens, their bodies, for a long time. We've been studying them, trying to reverse engineer them. They exist. They're actually on this planet. There's been talk like that for a long time, but the volume of it has never been so high as it is right now, right? And the circumstances that kind of, I won't say support that conclusion, but the circumstance that's kind of consistent with that is the fact that you have so many people in this administration who seem to be disclosure advocates. Maybe most importantly, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, for a long time, has been a big advocate for UAP disclosure. I've talked about him before on this channel in the context of UAP disclosure. And he's been a member of the Gang of Eight, which means he's been in SCIFs and heard things that normal members of Congress, rank and file members of Congress, the AOCs of the world don't get to hear. Right? He's gotten to hear a lot of things as a member of the Gang of Eight because of some of the committees he's on that normal members of Congress would never be trusted with. The fact that he's such a big UAP disclosure advocate is a pretty big deal. Then you've got everybody else in the administration. Nobody seems to be against UAP disclosure. You've got the head of the intelligence community, hasn't talked as much about UAPs, but she seems to be in favor of disclosure, whatever that means. You've got the vice president, seems to be in favor of disclosure, whatever that means. You've got Marco Rubio, who's sort of a super advocate of disclosure. It feels different this time. We'll see what happens. So this is the list of the mini outages we saw tonight. I saw this and I was pretty worried about being able to get things together for the stream tonight because it was basically like every piece of cloud software ever, was obviously having problems. Look at this list. Immediately I was like, this just seems like another Cloudflare incident and maybe we should diversify. Maybe these guys should all get on different providers of various types of technology. But this is where we are in 2026. So let's see what people are saying here. This compounds our DeFi adoption woes. The tax thing. Oh yeah, okay. Here's the thing. Maybe this is still true or not, but I've seen Cardano users as the adults in the room. They think about tax, etc. I have to think DeFi bros are just tax avoiding or ignoring. Guaranteed. I've had many discussions with DeFi bros, and this goes clear back to like 2018. I would have discussions with people and they'd be talking about DeFi and I would just ask them like, How are you keeping track of all your, your gains and losses? Like you're doing how many trades a day? And some people were like, I was doing, like many trades per day for like months at a time. So they would have like, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of trades in a year. It's like quite an administrative burden. And I've kind of like, there was at least one person who they kind of like kept apprising me of the situation as they went through the tax process. They had to hire a special accountant who just specialized in DeFi taxes and pay that person a huge amount of money just to do their taxes. And by the time they got done with that first round of having to actually do their DeFi taxes, they pretty much fell off the DeFi wagon. They were pretty much done with DeFi after that. Um, you know, like I'm an advocate of the de minimis tax exemption. I would love it if we didn't have to pay, you know, capital gains taxes on a cup of coffee, right? Whether they're long or short term. It'd be great if we have to pay those taxes. But while that may be achievable, like you're always gonna have to pay taxes when you're moving assets around for things like trading, right? The IRS is not going to roll over and be like, okay, you guys just trade like crazy, no taxes. Like that's not going to happen. We might be able to buy coffee with the de minimis tax exemption, but all of the crazy DeFi trading, that's always going to be taxed. So it's always going to be quite a, as Brown Beardo put it here, quite a compounding event. So Jay Marie says, hello, I'm late as fuck. That's okay. Feel free to join late, early, whenever you want to. Just glad you're here. And Enthusiast says, yes, UAP Army of Spies is my favorite. Let's go. Wouldn't be surprised if Epstein was an alien. Explains a lot. Yeah, dude, it's so dark. All that is so dark. So dark, the Epstein thing. I hate to, obviously, it's something that we're all talking about as we're learning more. It's something we're all talking about in our normal life. I've been trying to make this channel a little bit of a vacation from the Epstein stuff because it's so dark. It's so dark. Very familiar with UAP Gerb. UAP Gerb has covered a lot of things that he's covered some things that his coverage is very interesting. He's the best researcher. He's the deepest and best researcher. UAP Gerb will figure out that some dude worked at some facility 20 years ago, find that guy's phone number and call him and try to set up a lunch so he can go talk to that guy. He's the deepest researcher in the UAP space, mad respect. And he ends up talking about some things that I like. He'll talk about some things that I happen to know about. Not in any like inside the program sense, but I just know like a few outside details about something, not from research, but from real life. And he's obviously got a handle on all of it. Nobody can beat him in the UAP research game. He's like so deep on that. And what he's really good at is following the money. He is by far the best at figuring out how the entire program, how the whole entire legacy program is being paid for. That dude is more on top of it than anybody. Very impressive. Highly recommend his channel. It's very dense though. It's like an auditor just like spent 1 billion hours researching how the legacy program is being paid for. And that's that channel. It's fascinating. He's the king. He's the king, but it's very dense. Puckyhawk says, I just figured out X. I'm old and stubborn, but not stupid. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, you should. Cardano X is quite active. Yeah, I think you'll have a good time over there if you haven't spent much time on Cardano X. I think you'll have a good time. Stay safe at any party, peeps. The least people know about you, the best. Yeah, agreed. Do not, now it's not such a big problem. I think we're all kind of happy not to talk about crypto right now because prices are so bad. But next time we're in a bull market, remember this advice from D.U. The less people know about you, the better if you're holding crypto. That's for sure. Epstein files are going to result in nothing at all. Everyone is crazy into them, but there is no proof of anything in them. Yeah, it's like I said, I mean, there's a lot to discuss there, a lot of issues, a lot of it's like very dark. So I'll try to make this channel a vacation for everybody from that. But Dolphy Wolf is here. Good morning. Yeah, you made it just in time. Thank you for joining. But unfortunately, I think we have covered all of the news. So that was all of the big news from the last 2 days. I think there's a lot going on in the world right now. People are pretty disturbed about some of the news items. It's looking like we're going to get pretty pretty quickly, we're going to find ourselves in a kinetic situation in the Persian Gulf. That's, you know, uh, it's unfortunate anytime there is military activity like that. In this case, for the sake of the people of Iran, I think it's time they've had their freedom. So I will welcome that, unlike I would welcome, many, many other types of military events, but I will definitely welcome that military event because it's time for freedom for the people of Iran. I think there's a lot going on. I think that's going to be kind of a transformational event in the history of, modern Middle Eastern politics. If Trump, if I'm not saying this is going to happen, and a million times before it was supposed to something was supposed to happen on the UAP timeline. It didn't happen. But if Trump gets up in front of the podium and he tells the world there is non-human intelligence, we have a craft retrieval and reverse engineering program, and there is non-human intelligence on Earth right now. That's going to be one of the most transformational broadcasts in the history of humankind. It's going to be one of the biggest things that's ever happened in humankind. Will most people just ignore it? Probably also yes. A lot of people, there's a lot of memes going around right now that show kind of like a presidential announcement of non-human intelligence, and, typical meme character being like, I've got a lot going on, can't really think about that right now. I think there's going to be a lot of that. People may be more transfixed by the recent files that came out than they would be by the disclosure once and for all that non-human intelligence is on Earth. But we'll see how it goes. I think there's a lot going on in the world. Unfortunately, not a lot of it has to do with prices in crypto getting better, but this is crypto. We're used to this. Everything will be just fine, I think. So I hope everybody is starting in a good week. We missed yesterday, so there's a lot to cover today. Rulo says 100% there's no human intelligence on Earth right now, or did you say non-human? Good call. Good call. I agree with that. There may be no human intelligence on Earth. We're definitely talking about non-human intelligence. Non-human intelligence. Pucky Hawk says being an outer space visitor is hard these days. Yep. I agree. I mean, I wouldn't know, but I can only imagine in your case. I can only imagine how difficult it is to be an alien on Earth right now. But I think there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot to be optimistic for. While right now, like I said, the world seems to be transfixed by very dark and grim news. I think there's also a lot in this world to be optimistic for right now. If some of these revelations manifest anytime over the next few years, I think it's going to be transformational for humankind. I think there's a lot to be optimistic for in crypto. I think in the world of AI, there are some dangers. There's some dangers lurking in the background, but there's also a lot to be optimistic for. I really, truly hope that we see AI, Elon's vision of, AI and robotics producing this age of bounty and plenty for humankind, where humans get to spend their time, doing what they wish as opposed to toiling away in the fiat mines. And I hope soon I have something to tell you all about in terms of, projects and toil and crypto and those kinds of things. So I think there's a lot to look forward to. I think there is, even in these kind of dark times, I think there's a lot to look forward to in the future. So I hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope you had a good Monday. I hope you're looking forward to a great week, and I'll talk to everybody soon.